We are having an interesting conversation here about the top 100 most loved brands by women in Kenya. Isn't that interesting? I know the ladies are listening in right now and they're thinking, I know my favorite. I know the brand that I love. Well, I'm joined by my special guest here right about now. So make sure you join in on the fun, join in on the conversation. I've got Eva Muraya, founder and chief executive officer of BSD Group, and Koi Kariuki, senior research manager, Ipsos. Welcome to the Spice Drive, ladies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Big week for us. Thank you.
You are welcome. It is a pleasure to have you on the Spice Drive, and allow me to celebrate you in advance. I know people are counting down to March 8th, but I want to celebrate you amazing ladies today, right here on the show.
Thank you. This was a cutting that to a big day on Monday.
Yes.
So we're excited.
Very exciting indeed. I'm going to start with you, Koi, because I can see the list was shared and a lot of Kenyan women and African women are interested in how you came up with this list. Top 100 most loved brands by women in Kenya.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's a collaboration between ourselves, Ipsos and BSD. So the idea was birthed by Eva.
Yes.
And, she really just wanted to find out how can we determine the most loved brands by women in Kenya. So we were approached, and, if we're going to find out about the most loved brands by women in Kenya, we have to make sure we sample nationally. We speak to women across all of Kenya. So, yeah, we looked at 1,021 women across all the regions.
Nice.
Urban women, rural women, across various age groups, and asked them a variety of questions, and eventually asking them, what's the one most loved brand, and why do you love it?
Wow.
So it was really a national study.
It really was.
We ranked everything.
And I could see the list had different opinions, different views, and different reactions on social media. Eva, this is a brilliant idea. It's about time people got to understand the Kenyan woman and got to understand what brands they're going for and why. Were you surprised by the outcome?
Actually, I think, I was somewhat surprised, given that, there are some brands that are perceived to be a lot more visible than others. But it really does take a different dynamic when it gets to a relationship between a brand and its consumer. That's a whole other, ball game. At BSD Group, we say that a brand is not what we say it is, but that a brand is what they say it is.
Right.
So it was interesting because, you could have a brand preference, you could have brand liking, but when you narrow it down to brand love, that's a whole other conversation. So it was a surprising, but I think for me, even in the surprise, it's what does this then mean for us as market leaders here, as business owners, as private equity partners? What is the real message that we want to take away from this study? So surprised, pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised. I like that. And also seeing women at the forefront of this research, I think is brilliant. So we can trust it even more. Koi, you've been doing this for over 10 years. You've been in the game. And I'm curious to understand, in your words, in your understanding, who is the Kenyan woman? And also it helps us understand better what brands they consider their favorites and what brands they love. Who is the Kenyan woman? I find her extremely complicated, intense, passionate, sexy, so many things. So the list had all these brands in there, and I want to just decipher and understand from your perspective, who is the Kenyan woman?
Ooh, the Kenyan woman. She's a passionate woman. She is an optimistic woman.
Yeah.
She dominates within the home and in the workspace. And she's really just trying to make things balance in both sides.
Yeah.
She's trying to stretch her dollar, stretch her shilling. So that also reflected a lot in what we saw in the brands that came in the top 100.
Yes.
And because she really does care for her family and she's very much involved with social issues, some of the the brands, I think there were quite a few hospitals were mentioned even in that list
Right.
as love brands, which also came out as like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Is this something to do with healthcare? Thinking about COVID, we're seeing 51% of women make decisions on healthcare. And so maybe that also is reflected in the data and what we saw in that respect. But she is driven for sure, and family is really at the center of her life, whether or not she has a family. So yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, I love it. I love the breakdown. And one of the things that came up when I was sharing this with a couple of friends of mine, and I was talking to them about this list, and I said, "What do you think about it?" I just vaguely threw it in there. You mentioned that you interviewed a couple of women, different age brackets. Eva, can you tell us the breakdown of the women that you approached, and of course the top 10? We'll start with the top 10, the age bracket of the women we're talking to or talking about.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah.
So like Koi said, there was 1,021 of them. And what was beautiful about this was that it was a national spread. So whereas, we've got the legacy provinces, which really defined the way in which we would approach or frame the engagement,
Right.
we spoke to women from every single county of Kenya. And we spoke with women from the age of 18 to a little above 75. I think there was a couple of that came in nearly the 80 age bracket. And we spoke to urban women, we spoke to rural women, we spoke to women, mothers, either who are either single or married. So it was the diversity, and we made sure that we included every single woman. So I don't know, Koi, what would we say about the top 10?
In terms of the top 10 brands, so you're talking about, so in terms of the top 10, I mean, it really, we saw obviously our bigger brands featuring in there. And especially I think the top 2 or 3, those ones really, really stood out amongst the most loved brands, amongst women across the board, whether you're in a rural area, whether you're in an urban area, and also across the age brackets. So it was across the board, if I can say.
Well, I think there's one thing that I want to say about the top 10.
Yes.
It was interesting to see a brand that is not necessarily visible in the way that we define visibility. But come on, girlfriend, it's in every single girl's handbag, and that's Aramis, And for me, finding Aramis featuring as top 10 and getting Kenyan women on social media saying we completely agree that Aramis belongs there.
Yes.
Was a demonstration of the power of the collective, the power of women around word of mouth, that women do actually believe in influencing one another and peer referencing. I mean, I don't ever remember growing up and seeing a billboard or a big, campaign around this. But I know that I go to my chamas and somebody will ask, do you have Aramis?
Yes.
Do you have the jelly? Do you know? And it's what we use, is what we're using on our children, etc. So that there's an interesting insight there about this power of this demographic in influencing across word of mouth.
Right.
So I think that was very interesting.
And
within the top 10.
I think it's very interesting to note that you pointed that particular brand. I'm not going to plug, but yes, when I saw the list, I agree with you. And I think the concept has also challenged a lot of marketers who have conventional ways of doing their research, or probably thinking that they understand the Kenyan woman or the African woman for that matter. I saw a comment that came up on my Instagram, and it says, it was interesting to see Mitumba get classified.
Right.
What is your reaction to that comment?
I think it should surprise all of us.
Yeah.
But then I think it should, and I think on the day we launched the study, we had a very, very good government representation. But I think maybe that's something we should then introspectively discuss.
Yes.
And ask, is this a way we want to be defined, especially when we've got a agenda like manufacturing as key? Do we really want that to be the narrative. So it introduces interesting debate.
Right.
But yeah, that's our truth. Kenya is riding on that reality. I grew up in a Kenya that knew Rivertex and knew Kikomi.
Right.
So I grew up wearing Kenyan cotton. And I hope that for policymakers, this can be something that, presents debate in the right forums, in the right rooms, and action following that debate. But yes, it was number 20, I think it was.
Right? And this is who we are. This is who we are. This is who we are. And, when people think they've figured women generally on the continent and, they've figured us out and they know exactly what we need and what we want, I see this moving forward being a mainstay when it comes to consulting and understanding what women need and what they want and what they're going for. When we look at the age bracket that you consulted, it's also helpful to note that things are changing. It's getting dynamic. It's very interesting. It's a mix of different brands and products in there. Moving forward, are you planning to engage wider groups? How frequently do you plan to do this? What's next?
Beautiful question. And the answer is yes. This was the inaugural.
Yes.
Watch the space. There's going to be more coming.
Yes.
We will remain disruptive. But I think more importantly, we are open to say, come and engage with the study, draw insights. Businesses today must be data-led in their business decisions.
Right.
Policymakers must be data-led. Come and this Kenyan woman, we have completely packaged her anxieties and her fears are in there. We have captured her aspirations and her dreams. We have seen she's entrepreneurial in aspiration. I think there's 1 out of 4 women want to start a business of their own. So there's a lot in there for everybody to unbundle the data, to draw some insights. And irrespective of where you're at, whether you're a not-for-profit or you're a development partner, you're a policymaker, it's all in there if this woman is a demographic of interest.
Brilliant. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be excited to be part. And looking at this, even the men are probably surprised by the list. It's not only the women that were looking at the list thinking, what is this? Who are we? Who am I? And I like that you mentioned that when you're better informed, you can better serve and you can better understand, the Kenyan woman. I've seen different comments here. I want to read out one before I let you go. I'm enjoying this conversation and I'm just looking at the list, trying to look at myself, trying to find myself in there. And I'm seeing 2 hashtags attached to this amazing conversation, Top 100 Brands Africa and International Women's Day. This one here says, I think that a lot of men will be surprised to see some of the brands that were listed there. Do you agree, Koi?
Yeah, I think when we had a conversation, I'll say with one of our male colleagues, they looked at Tusker and Senators like, hey, why is Tusker and Senator so far down? And I think someone else called me and they were asking me, why is such and such hospital here? And where I think someone had even asked about gin. I know women like Gilbey's, for example. And a lot of the times when you think about your social space, you're thinking about your niche bubble and maybe the few women that you interact with. But here we're looking at a wide spread of women across the board, not just your, anaerobic Kilimani lot and the women in that space. So I think it is very revealing for them, and also just to see what it is that we do actually value. I mean, we're going back to this Arimis story, but the fact that it cuts across all SECs, everyone from your affluent to your less affluent. I mean, that just speaks to what brand up and what we really do like as women and what we love. It's not just what you see in your small social circles. And that's what we also wanted to highlight in the study.
Fantastic. I'm enjoying every second of it, and I'm going to be sharing more comments with you as I receive them. And of course, we're going to be in touch after this. Eva, you wanted to add something?
I was just going to just to blend in a little bit there with Koi. There was an interesting global statistic that was very, very instructive.
Yeah.
And this is to do with a research study conducted in 2018 or 19 by Goldman Sachs around the total global consumption budget, if you could call it that. Everything that we buy, whether it's product or service globally per year, is an equivalent of about $18 trillion. And of that, $12.4 trillion is controlled by women. Controlled by women. So that's just a magical number to want to better interact with and begin to ask, what's the context like in Kenya? And might that be where my extra market share, my extra profit, my extra margin is hidden, and therefore make women primary to the consideration of my product, service, if I have not been doing that before. So it's win-win.
It is win-win. Brilliant. And timely conversation. We have been accused of also, getting together, banding together towards International Women's Day, Mother's Day. And that's when, we have conversations centered around women. We're guilty of that. But I love that this is coming at a time where not just this year and not just as a national conversation, but also, as you said, a global conversation. And, when you look at the spending power of women and how much they contribute from the family level to the corporate level, it's brilliant to see people embracing your findings and willing to get in touch. So how can people get in touch with you online, by email, and how can they consult more and understand better, whether it's an individual, young girl, trying to understand how you came up with this and how they can be part of it, or a business owner?
Sure. Koi, do you want to take a stab at that, and I can chime in?
Yeah, so we actually have a microsite. So it's www.top100brands.africa. And over there, you can just get a nice snapshot of what the study is about. If you want more information, their contact details. If you want to buy the data, an order form there that people can buy the data through. And obviously ourselves. I think we have our Twitter handles as well. So myself and Eva, you can also get in touch with us through social media. We're not rigid.
Yeah.
So those are avenues in which you can get in touch with us. I think Eva can add something.
Absolutely. And
Very
let's
nice.
keep the conversation going.
Yes.
Let's keep the conversation going. We are all working together to, just get this, the disruption of our economy last year in the back banner. So let's get conversations that are progressive, that are, allow for a new opportunity in terms of business. If we have ignored the women, omitted them, forgotten them, undervalued them, I'm hoping that this study now begins to say, bring the conversation where it truly, rightfully belongs, and let's jointly move the conversation together.
Brilliant.
So that's really,
I love it. Listen, I am looking forward to having you here again. We need to make this regular. I'm enjoying the conversation with you, and I can't believe the time, and we just started. It's top of the hour. We've got more coming through, and yes, you can follow on social media. I love this. And yes, happy International Women's Day in advance from Team Spice Drive. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Happy International Women's Month to you and all our listeners. Thank you for having us.
The Spice Drive with Monique. Spicing up your drive.